Hey everyone, today we're going to go over lab equipment. The reason I go over lab equipment every single year is one, people forget what are the names of lab equipment and then how they are used. When you get a lab, it's going to ask you to use specific types of equipment, and I want you to be able to recognize the name of an equipment and match it with what the equipment is and how it's used. So, first and foremost, we have to make sure that the lab equipment is clean before we use it. Also, if it's not clean, all you have to do is take it over to the sink, wash it, and make sure you dry it thoroughly before you use it. Second, check it for any cracks or broken edges. If there is a crack and broken edge, please bring it to me and we can discard of it. Third, when you are done using it, make sure it's washed and dried and put back how you saw it in the beginning. That way, it's ready for the next lab. We're going to begin with some glassware that most people are familiar with, and the first one are going to be beakers. And here you can see a picture over to the right. Beakers hold, mix, and heat solids or liquids that will not usually release gases when things are reacted in them, or if we stir them, they're unlikely to splatter on you. Now, one thing to note is that these do come in different volumes. Here, this is a 600 milliliter beaker on the right, but they can come as big as 1,000 and small as 50 milliliters in my classroom. Another thing to note is that they do have volume measurements on the side, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500, but note that these are approximate values. These are actually very poor tools to measure volume. If in the lab I ever ask you to measure exactly 20 milliliters, you would never use a beaker to do that. We're going to have a lab equipment come up later, and that's one we're going to use to measure volumes. Similar to a beaker, we have something called an Erlenmeyer flask, and they're different because they're more triangle shaped and they have a narrow neck. These have similar functions to the beaker. We can pour, heat, and cool liquids in them, but we can also use them to heat liquids and solids. But these liquids and solids are most likely to release gases and splatter. We have things that are going to release gases and splatter in these ones because they have a narrow neck. So if it does splatter, it's not going to get all over you like a beaker. Here we have a picture of a graduate cylinder. Similar to beakers, these come in all shapes and sizes, but these are what we're going to use to measure volume of liquids accurately. So like I said, if I asked you to measure 20 milliliters, this is what you're going to be doing. So rules of measuring things accurately. First and foremost, you're going to make sure that your graduate cylinder is on a flat surface, a flat level surface. Then you're going to get down to eye level and you're going to see this little bubble here form. This bubble is called the meniscus, and you're going to read the measurement at the very bottom. This means that this graduate cylinder needs to be sitting at a table and you might have to squat down. Don't hold the graduate cylinder up to your eye level and try to read it. The next set of things we're going to talk about is test tubes and accessories. A test tube is this little glass thing here that is used to mix and heat chemicals. Since we can heat chemicals in a test tube, oftentimes they may get too hot for you to hold with your hand. So that's when the test tube holder comes into play. It's useful for holding a test tube that's too hot to handle with your hands. Another thing that's important is something called a test tube rack. This is used for holding, drying, and organizing test tubes in a vertical position. Sometimes you're working with a lot of different mixtures, and we don't want them to spill, and this is one easy way to keep them upright. A well plate is used in place of test tubes whenever we're working with smaller reactions. So well plates can come in very, very small wells or very large wells. This one is an example of a 24 well plate, and this one you can see has 96 well plates or little tiny places you can hold reactions. Other equipment that you might see is a crucible and a lid. This is used to heat substances at very high temperatures. In fact, I use this in advanced chem when we're trying to burn magnesium. The next one This one is an evaporating dish. This is used to evaporate liquids when they're solid, so we heat them in high temperatures to be evaporated. And the last one, this one is your mortar and pestle. This is used to grind and crush solids into a very fine powder. Things that are used to transfer things or pick up hot things include beaker tongs. This picks up hot beakers. Pipettes, this is used to transfer liquids. Forceps, we can pick up small objects. Crucible tongs pick up very hot objects. And then a scoopula, this is used to scoop or transfer chemicals such as powders. More equipment. Sometimes you're going to see this, it's just a glass rod. We call it a stirring rod. It's used to mix chemicals in a beaker, but please note this is made up of glass. So this is glass. You got to make sure that you don't stir too vigorously that you'll break that. The next one is a watch glass. Oops. A watch glass is used to cover a beaker or an evaporating dish if needed, and it also helps hold small amounts of solids as well if you want to weigh them on a scale. The next one is a thermometer, and this measures degrees in Celsius. And the last one is a funnel. This one is going to help filter solids from liquids or use in filtering. A couple cleaning tools that you might use is a distilled wash bottle. This helps clean out glassware, but also adds small amount of water to containers or reactions. The other one is test tube brushes. This is used to clean out test tubes and graduated cylinders. In terms of weighing things, a weigh boat and a scale are your best bet. This is a weight boat or a mass boat, some people call it. This is a very flimsy, flexible, lightweight plastic that holds chemicals while you weigh them. Awesome thing about a weigh boat is that they are disposable, so you can use them and throw them away. The next one is electronic scale, and this is going to measure chemicals in grams. In terms of heating chemicals, we use hot plates quite often in this class because they're less likely to leak gas and cause an issue. But we do still use Bunsen burners, and as a freshman, I did teach you guys how to light a Bunsen burner properly. And then over here, we have a striker. So here's the back of it, and then here is the front, and it has a little flint. When you squeeze this together, it creates a spark to light the gas that comes out of this Bunsen burner. So a striker creates a spark to light a flame, a Bunsen burner heats up chemicals using a flame, and a hot plate is used to heat up chemicals as well. Now, in terms of heating things up, sometimes we don't like to hold things as we heat them or measure them, so we have different lab equipment that holds things for us. The first one is a ring stand. This is like the base. So a ring stand over here acts as the support to attach different clamps. So here we have one type of clamp, and here we have a second type of clamp. So here, this is known as a test tube or burette clamp. This can hold a test tube above a flame. And then over here, this is a ring clamp because it's made up of a circle. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that these can be used here later down further. In fact, we're going to talk about a few more accessories that are used with those. Sometimes a clay triangle can be put on top of a ring clamp, and it's used to hold a crucible or funnels. Wire gauze can also be put on top of a ring clamp, and this can be used to hold a beaker or Erlenmeyer flask over a flame to heat it evenly. So here I said I was going to show you a common setup. Here is your ring stand. We're putting a Bunsen burner underneath it, and then we have what's called a clamp here. So here we have our ring clamp. We put a wire gauze down to heat it evenly, and then we can put a beaker on top. Here's another common setup that you might see. Here, this is the ring stand. Here we have our ring clamp. Here we have a clay triangle. Here we have a crucible, and we're going to heat it all over a Bunsen burner. And here's the last setup. This is a common setup for filtering. You might see here's your ring stand and your ring clamp. We have a funnel here with some filter paper in it, and it's going to funnel into a beaker. So there are some common lab setup things that you guys should know and be familiar with. If you have any questions, please let me know. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day.